This episode is affiliated with CleanShotX. Tired of messy Mac screenshots? CleanShotX revolutionizes screen capture with scrolling screenshots, instant annotations, background cleanup, and OCR. Why juggle 7 different tools when one professional solution does it all? Grab the affiliate link in the episode description for your one-time purchase at just $29. No subscriptions, just pure screenshot perfection.
All right. Welcome to episode number 23 of the Awesome Algo podcast. I'm your host, Al from MakerX.
And I'm your host, Mike from Algorand Foundation.
And today we have a special guest. He is one of the founders of Valar Staking. And apologies if I'm not pronouncing your surname correctly, Uroš. So I'll refer to you by your name. But we are basically going to talk about a unique decentralized peer-to-peer staking solution that was introduced past the major switch in the Algorand blockchain to staking that significantly contributed to the decentralization of the protocol. And we would like to go over the history of the protocol, go over some technical details, and obviously talk about some exciting upcoming features. And with that, I'd like to give the word to Uroš, and perhaps let's start a little bit with your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Uroš Hudomalj, the CEO of Valar Solutions, the company that's developing the Valar platform. And just to briefly mention what Valar platform is, it's a staking platform with a new approach that connects blockchain stakeholders directly with node runners to provide a simple and secure staking experience through peer-to-peer delegation of the node running. And what the platform actually does is it acts as a decentralized, permissionless marketplace where node runners from around the globe can advertise their node running services, and users can easily conclude contracts for those services and start staking this way. Yeah, and a bit about myself. So I come from Slovenia, where I studied first electrical engineering. Then I moved to Germany, Munich, where I continued my studies, and then finally moved to Switzerland, where I finished my PhD late last year, in the field of mechatronics. And afterwards, I've professionally dived deep into blockchain development, although I've been developing blockchain solutions as a hobby since multiple years. But after my PhD, I finally had the time to really start this professionally.
That's great. And could you tell us a little bit about what was the initial spark behind wanting to create a distributed peer-to-peer delegated system like Valar?
Sure. So our team at Valar sees essentially blockchains as a great technical solution to increasing the trust within the society by minimizing risks of censorship, manipulation, and downtime of systems. Because we personally see multiple times and experience issues and friction created because traditional systems do not sufficiently mitigate these risks. For example, from unjustly blocked cross-border transactions to manipulated random or supposedly random draws, and so on. So we see blockchains as a great technical solution to such problems to create better systems, in essence. But when we looked at blockchains today, we saw that, objectively, they have not yet reached their true decentralization potential. And that's why we've been thinking about how could we improve on this to push decentralization further for blockchains to create better system this way, which could be used to build new solutions that minimize the risk I mentioned for users. And our answer to that was a peer-to-peer staking platform, which goal is to increase the number of nodes and the amount of online stake on proof of stake networks. Essentially that.
And if I understood it correctly, it initially started as an idea at a global hackathon sometime last year, right? So you guys were able to achieve quite a lot in a fairly small time interval, which is very impressive.
Exactly. Actually, we've been thinking about the idea a bit earlier already, essentially since the start when, or even prior to introduction of or announcement that staking rewards will come to Algorand. We've been thinking about how could we increase decentralization of blockchains. And then Algorand announced the switch to staking rewards. And we wanted to, for when those, as we've seen, have drove multiple people to stake and increase network resilience this way. And yes, we started with a hackathon project to just quickly develop the idea and test it out. And we got some great feedback through the hackathon. In the end, we actually emerged as winners of the hackathon that was at the Decipher conference 2024. And yes, everything else spiraled out of that.
That's wonderful. And how would you say your experience was during the incubator program?
So the incubator program was something that we were invited after our win at the Decipher hackathon or Algorand Foundation hackathon. We were then invited into the incubator program to basically develop our idea further and prepare for a production ready product. And yeah, the incubator itself was a very useful experience for us because our team is all developers. And during the incubator, we managed to clarify and improve also of all the other topics that are important when launching a company and a new product. So everything from branding, marketing, legal, all of that, fundraising, accounting, all the headaches that we didn't anticipate initially to that degree. So yeah, the help that we received during the incubator program from the Algorand Foundation was really amazing, helpful. For example, just some things that we clarified was, for example, the user persona. So to really try to understand who our users are, what they would like to see, what's the unique selling points of Valar compared to other similar solutions, and then how to get that message across through different branding approaches. As part of branding, we also rebranded from our initial project name that was I Go Protect, which was the name that we used in the hackathon. Quite soon realized that it was a very difficult to pronounce, a lot of confusion, whether it's Algo Protect and stuff like that. So we were quite lucky enough to relatively soon rebrand as Valar.
I think this is a first Tolkien-inspired project name and entire Algorand ecosystem.
I think so too. As far as we've seen, yes. And I think the Valar name is quite on point because Valar in the Tolkien universe are angelic beings that are overseeing the whole universe. And that's also the mission of Valar, to oversee and protect the Algorand network and drive forward its decentralization.
And I just wanted to highlight for the listeners out there will be links at the description of the episode to the repository of Valar Staking. And one of the highlights there is what Uroš was describing, the overview of the entire platform. There's a very detailed PDF where you can look at the personas, very technical explanation of all components of the system. And I must ask, did you guys use LaTeX to render that PDF? Because it looks very, very nice. Yeah, awesome. So I guess let's talk a bit more about the architecture and the unique value proposition of Valar. For those who might not be familiar, can you explain a bit more on what Valar is and how peer-to-peer staking differs from other staking options like pools or liquid staking that are available in the ecosystem at the moment?
Sure. So peer-to-peer staking relies only on the native staking available on blockchains. So it doesn't require users to transfer their funds out of their wallets to smart contracts to lock them up, but uses just the native staking compatibilities. And this greatly reduces user risks. They don't have to trust any third-party smart contracts. They just have to keep trusting the base layer as they have done so far. There is, in sense, no difference between just having your funds in your wallet or staking them at the same time. The funds stay secure. There are also downsides, of course, to this. For example, in order to stake natively on Algorand, or better to say, to stake and be able to earn staking rewards, you need at least 30,000 Algorand. This is a limit of the protocol. And of course, that's why, for example, staking solution, other pooling solutions or liquid staking tokens might be more preferable for some users, smaller amounts, because they can pull the stake together in a smart contract and participate jointly through that. But also what's then different with staking is you participate directly, you get rewards for each block that you produce directly from the protocol to your wallet. There is no commission on that. The block that you produce, you get all the rewards from that. And the whole monetization model is also quite different because of that. You essentially, as a staker, pay for the service of running the node. That is done by a node runner that you can freely select from around the globe. Or if you're a node runner, the platform is completely decentralized, permissionless. You can offer your node running services to others because your node likely has capacity to operate more accounts than just for yourself. And also then, because of this different monetization approach, you can also pay for the service, for example, in stable coins. So you have very transparent costs insights into your staking. It's not a percentage of the rewards that you earn. It's really just for the service of the node running.
That's so great. And it really does revolve around self-custody as a major component. And can you elaborate a little bit more on that relationship between people who hold custody and the node runners and why that would be important?
Sure. So perhaps just for the viewers who might not be familiar how that operates on Algorand, for example, on Algorand, you have separation of spending keys that are used or with them, you can move funds from your wallet, and participation keys. The participation keys live on the computer nodes that participate in the staking process and are generated by those nodes. And you, as a staker, only associate your spending key with those participation keys. Essentially, delegate the right to vote and confirm the blocks to those participation keys that were generated, but those keys cannot spend your funds in any way. So that's the complete separation. The custody stays completely with you. You just delegate the right to vote and propose blocks.
I wanted to also elaborate a bit more on the main sort of components of the system. So if I understand it correctly, there's a fairly clean separation of concerns. You have smart contracts, you have the daemon that essentially primarily designed for the node runners, and you have the user interface that serves all the sort of user parties that interact with the platform, such as node runners and the users who would like to put their stake. How do these components essentially work together to, create a seamless experience?
So even though, as I said, for the staking itself, we do not, or your funds never leave your wallet, don't interact with any smart contracts. For just the process itself or of organizing or connecting you as a staker with a node runner, we do use smart contracts, but this is just for the exchange of these participation keys and to facilitate the payments for the service and for both parties to essentially follow the agreed contract terms. That's covered by the smart contracts, which are decentralized and open to anyone to participate. And in essence, you can imagine that the smart contract is a one large notice board where individual node runners just post their ads for the service that they're offering of running nodes. And then based on those ads, individual contracts are created between the node runner and the staker. To facilitate all of this, of course, users require a nice, simple interface. That's the application that you can access at stake.valar.solutions, which is just generating or fetching the data from the blockchain and essentially enabling you to send the correct transactions to make this staking contract. And you can do this as a staker with an account that's completely separate from the account that's actually staking. And just to then also automatize the other side of this, so for the node runners, when a staker starts staking on your node, the node has to generate the participation keys, as well as then manage all this process of checking if all the agreed contract terms are respected. For that part, the node runner can use the Valar daemon that we also developed just to, as I said, automatize this process. But that's an optional component which could theoretically be done also by hand.
That is great. And you mentioned a little bit about the fee payment for the system. Can you elaborate a little bit more around the decision around no commissions on rewards, and how did you come to this design for sustainability?
Sure. Actually, first of all, there is no other way for this. If you want, at the moment, if you want a delegated peer-to-peer staking solution, the account is participating directly in consensus. It's getting the rewards directly from the consensus, and you don't have at any point any access to that. So how still the platform can sustain itself is because the service is still not free. The node runners set their own service terms, including their costs. They have to cover their electricity bills, internet bills, and so on. And you as a staker pay for that service. And the platform takes a commission on the revenue that is generated by the node runners to sustain itself.
I'm also curious a little bit on the stacks that you guys use to implement the platform. Could you speak a little bit on the implementation of the smart contracts themselves, and how did you find the experience on developing on the Algorand ecosystem in general?
Well, the experience has been great. I mean, as I said, we've been involved in the ecosystem for much longer. We've been through it all. And really with AlgoKit, the experience now is really seamless. Also to onboard new developers to develop on Algorand. Yeah, it's a breeze. All the tools that you have helped develop, and really also the support from MakerX while developing. We've stumbled upon some issues, challenges, and the next day when we reported an issue, it was already solved by your amazing team. So it's really come to be an amazing developer experience.
And did you guys pretty much started on the smart contracts already using the Algorand Python, or have you had to go through like some of the earlier iterations of what was available in the ecosystem?
Oh, for Valar, we started directly with Algorand Python. It was already available at the time. Yeah, and it was an amazing experience. Yeah,
nice.
Much easier than Beaker and PyTeal earlier, and yeah, of course, still.
Nice.
There's still some PyTeal enjoyers out there, but I do think Algorand Python has made such a splash that there's no going back. There will be no extra versions. Syntactically accurate Python has been a blessing.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
lots of improvements coming to Algorand TypeScript as well that are borrowing some of the best practices from TealScript. And yeah, we'll see how the compiler ecosystem are going to grow. So based on the stats about Valar. I've heard that somewhat within a couple of weeks of launch, you guys had a quite a big amount of algo stake across hundreds of accounts. How would you say the platform grown since then? And what, if there are special metrics you would like to highlight as being the most proud of, what would those be?
Sure, yeah. I mean, Valar has been growing. We're now at around 320 stakers active. They stake together around 57 million algo currently. That's operated through about 70 different node runners. But what's even more surprising is that these 320 stakers now represent more than 15% of all accounts that are currently participating in consensus. But not the largest platform by stake, not by far, but with respect to the number of accounts that are participating, we are at the top. And this really shows how Valar's peer-to-peer staking approach is helping with network decentralization to spin up more nodes to decentralize the network.
That is the goal, isn't it? I think we're all on the warpath towards decentralization. And could you elaborate on how Valar and other solutions are helping us along this journey towards decentralization? You mentioned account numbers, but what about broader adoption for blockchain technology and decentralized finance?
Yeah, so of course, every solution is taking a bit of a different approach, has different pros and cons to it. With Valar, as you can see, we are focusing on minimizing risks for users because already blockchain can be a very volatile ecosystem, and we try to reduce the risk as much as possible. So how this then fits into the broader ecosystem? Well, the network and the network health is, of course, at the core of every blockchain. So with these stats that we are now seeing, we see Valar is becoming one of the pillars of the network, and contributes to its growth. Sorry, could you repeat where were you headed with the question?
Yes, absolutely. It's just the broader adoption of blockchain in the context of how Valar can help us win this war on decentralization, this path towards decentralization. I think we may have seen some things in the news recently about concerns around decentralization, and how does Valar fit into that puzzle piece?
Sure. So as you know, of course, the first step of engaging in blockchain is, or one of the first one is getting a wallet, right? And already that to get a wallet and come from as a user from a centralized exchange to a wallet, that's a relatively scary step. And then the next step is to try to interact with applications and so on. But because in order to decentralize the network, of course, we have to also guide users from centralized custody providers like exchanges into self-custody and get them to stake. So in that essence, with Valar, we try to minimize the friction or the user concerns once they get to a self-custody model, that they don't have to now think about smart contract risks further and so on, but just stake and help with the network decentralization. And we've been working very hard on trying to onboard users, smaller, larger, simplify the user experience for them, address the concerns that the stakers have. And that's why we have also been thinking about, for example, how to reduce their block anxiety, because you might have seen there are common questions. Look, I'm staking now. I haven't received the reward in a couple of days. What's been going on? Is my node operating well? The truth is, well, how Algorand blockchain works is that block production is random. So it happens from time to time that you do not get a reward for a certain number of days, but that doesn't mean that you're not participating well. It's just a probability. So we've been trying to onboard users, as well as then contribute to other staking solutions that are also helping to decentralize the network, or we have also received a great deal of help from them, not only from the Algorand Foundation, as I mentioned, the incubator, the mentoring that we get, but also, for example, from Nodely, a great infrastructure provider around the Algorand ecosystem, from which is also monitoring the network, how the nodes are performing, which is also one important aspect, of course, to when the users do stake, that they stake on well-managed nodes with good uptimes and so on. As well as Nodely has been very helpful by providing us or our users API access, so that when users do make transactions, that they get published to the blockchain. We've been also, for example, involved in the audit competition of Forex Finance liquid staking token, the Awesome Algo, and we received there the highest reward for finding bugs at that time when the audit was ongoing. We've been also discussing with other staking solution providers, their designs, pros and cons. So we are really trying to push the network forward, as well as on the core protocol level itself, how the suspension mechanisms work, if it could be improved in one way or another. Yeah, so that's where Valar fits into the whole Algorand system, behind the scenes trying to secure the network so that other applications on top of it can thrive.
I'd say we're all doing quite a good job. I think we just crossed 2 billion staked recently, and I think that the numbers speak for themselves.
Absolutely. But it could still be improved. Of course, we've seen in the last few days what's happening or can happen on blockchains, and we have to also keep working further to improve on that.
Before we talk a bit about the future roadmap, which I'm sure is very exciting, could you also briefly talk a bit about this Certify application, which seems to be an extension to Valar's services, and generally what's its sort of purpose? How does it complement the main staking platform?
Sure. So Certify is currently a proof of concept, which we developed as a possible extension of the Valar platform. And it tries to address one of the issues I mentioned, of how to ensure that the stakers are operating on good nodes, on nodes also or with node runners that they trust. Because when you stake, you delegate the rights to vote on blocks on your behalf. So there is some trust involved in the node runner. The node runner could potentially be malicious, try to stall the network or attack it. And this way, with Certify, we proposed one possible solution on how to simplify the journey of stakers to finding good, suitable node runners. And it essentially works by creating decentralized identities for the node runners. Think about, for example, certificates that attest to the abilities of the node runner. Currently, in the broader staking industry, there are efforts ongoing of having standardized guidelines and certificates for the staking service providers, and that could be put on chains for easy discovery and verification by the stakers. It could also be then used as part of your decentralized identity as a node runner if you're operating on one blockchain network, that you could showcase this also on other blockchains do operate in a similar way. Similar skills are needed. So that's, for example, a second type of certificate that could be used. There could also be KYC related certificates so that you as a staker know who is on the other side as a node runner. And this all goes into the direction of minimizing the risks for stakers. But there's also another aspect to the Certify platform, because, of course, as a new node runner, it's difficult to track the initial stake, because stakers usually go to the node runners that have proven themselves already, so that they had sufficient stake. And of course, that's also a point of centralization. If everyone goes to established node runners, then, well, we are centralizing the network. So with Certify, what we also suggest to do is a way of how a new node runner that joins the network can request to receive a certain amount of stake for a certain amount of time so that they can operate with that stake and build trust or build a showcase that they have the experience to operate nodes well. So those both two aspects are covered in the certified platform, but this is currently just as a proof of concept.
Without, I guess, revealing anything too sensitive, what can you also tell us? I guess Certify is leading us to some proof of concept things, which is also leading us further towards the vision that you guys have for the next steps and the future roadmap. So just curious, what can you tell us about the upcoming features or improvements that are planned for Valar?
So Valar is focusing, as I mentioned already, on simplifying the staking experience, reducing user risks, and contributing to network decentralization and overall health. And if the listeners have been following perhaps our socials, they might already seen the directions that we're working with, not only with the certified platform, that would be just one aspect, so regarding simplifying node runner selection. Just, for example, 2 days ago, we introduced the expert mode on the Valar UI that completely separates now the staking wallet from interactions with the smart contracts. Up to now, that was combined, but now we really separated this also on the UI so that the users' risks are minimized this way. We've been also working or exploring ways on how to simplify accounting issues that users face when they get a reward in certain jurisdictions. You have to account for that. So we've been also exploring ways on how that could be simplified. We are also working very hard on trying to find ways of creating additional meaningful incentives to stake, because for some users, just to earn some staking rewards might not be enough, or we are trying to find additional incentives for that. We are also working on how to improve node monitoring on the aspect as once a node is selected and you're operating there, how to see if the node is being run well, because the network itself, it doesn't reach consensus on how accounts or nodes are operating. So that is why we need new solutions for that. As well as on the other side, even if the node is monitored well, can we do something to increase the node reliability? And here we are taking inspiration from other ecosystems. For example, Ethereum has been very progressive in that regard with distributed validator technology. And we're exploring also ways how that could be ported to Algorand, because that's the way of how to increase the reliability very efficiently of the nodes. And we've spoken about already block anxiety, how to try to explain to users what's been going on. But that's just one aspect, so that they are aware and understand how the consensus works and the randomness involved. But we've been also thinking of ways of completely removing that away, if that would be possible, so that you wouldn't be anxious at all whether you are receiving rewards at all. So there are plenty of ways how to improve the staking experience, which is already, if you look at proof of stake networks, the staking experience on Algorand is really top-notch compared to other ecosystems. But there are still plenty of new ways that it could be improved further, but it will take a while in order to implement all of this, of course.
Does sound like you're going to be pretty busy over the next couple months and years. And how can our listeners stay updated with all of this, the things happening over at Valar?
So we are the most active on X. If you follow us at Valar Staking, we receive the most up-to-date news. We also have our Discord channel and Telegram. as well as a Medium blogs where we're regularly posting a bit more larger contents for a broader audience. And you can find all the links at our application at stake.valar.solutions.
And I'll make sure to include the link to the block anxiety, but I assume you guys are going to be integrating this somewhere directly into the platform at some point, right?
Yes, exactly. That's also the one way or what we've been thinking. But luckily, the block anxiety we published as open source repo as part of the Algorand developer retreat. And just yesterday, I think, was the creator of Node Algo Rewards. I think it's the address where you can check how your account has been producing rewards, also integrated that aspect into it so that that's already live and you can use it, but we'll be also adding it into the Valar application at some point.
Highly recommend Algo Rewards. It's a great product that they have over there and just well-designed interface.
Exactly. And I found it this really nice outcome of the Algorand developer retreat, where the purpose was to bring together developers from around the ecosystem to collaborate together on open source solutions that can push the whole ecosystem further, and so that such mutual beneficial integrations can come up more naturally and push the system further.
Absolutely.
All right. So I guess as a set of closing thoughts, we usually have a few minor questions that we ask to every guest every episode. But do you have any advices for aspiring blockchain engineers and entrepreneurs who are looking to build on Algorand?
Yes. First and foremost, download AlgoKit and just start developing. Really. AlgoKit has been such a breeze developer experience. And also now with the new developer portal, finding information and getting up to speed is much simpler than it used to be. Also then absolutely join Algorand Discord. The community there of developers interacting and helping each other out is really amazing. Really kudos to Algorand Foundation for helping to foster this. You also get their support to MakerX if you find any missing features for AlgoKit. They are very quick to respond. And also the AI integration there, you have an AI assistant that's trained on Algorand so that you can get also help yourself very quickly. So my advice to anyone is that wants to develop on blockchain, just download AlgoKit and start. But then also, of course, try to be involved with the community. Developers and entrepreneurs are very open to discussion of the ideas bouncing off. And so just participate at events. Algorand has now increased their participation or organization of events, as well as there are annual hackathons usually going on. There are plenty of workshops online or in person even. So that's a great starting point to start.
Well, and I guess with that, thank you very much, Uroš, for coming to our show. We did a fairly high-level overview of the platform, so would love to have you again sometime on the show once you have some new features introduced, and we can now do a more deeper dive into the implementation. As I said, all of the resources and links that Uroš mentioned during the episode are going to be included into the episode description. And also, just wanted to say kudos to everyone at the Algorand Foundation engineering team as well. Everyone working on the AlgoKit side under David and Joe and Jojo from the MakerX side. Obviously, our Puya compiler team, Adam, Tristan, and Dan. Yeah, they're doing an amazing job on the Puya side. All right. And with that, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Till next time.
Thank you for having me.